The pinned comment thing isn't working for me again on Instagram. I don't know what's
I think
going
we
on.
trying to come for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'll have to do it in a little bit. Hey, everybody. This is Dayna Lynn Nuckolls, the People's Oracle, the Sidereal astrologer. It's a full moon. Well, the full moon happened, but the full moon is still full mooning, and the full moon gonna be full mooning for a while. Because this particular one right here is setting us up. Honestly, this let me say this. I did a full moon reading last year in March for the full moon in Leo called Whose Vision Determines What You See, right? And this has proved to be in an evergreen uh, uh, video, evergreen phrase, because we live in patriarchy, right? We live in capitalism. We live in these anti-black misogynist society, and we assume that what we're seeing is is what we're looking at through our own eyes. And so this theme comes back full circle for this full moon. I'm actually gonna bypass the tarot readings up front today because I'll do a few on the tail end, but I'm bypassing the readings up front today because y'all need to take out your notebooks, y'all need to take out your pens, y'all need to take some notes, y'all need to pay close attention. I don't want no distractions, I don't want no nothing. I've even got notes myself. Y'all can't see this on Clubhouse, but I've got notes myself. So I listen. Where's my bowl? We need a singing bowl moment. Hold on, y'all, so we can properly mark the beginning of this. The tone of this particular singing bowl is very upper chakra-ish. It's very much open your mind, very much open your intuition, open your receptivity to understanding things in a way that may be contrary to what your eyes are telling you and what your belief systems teach you to interpret as far as what you're seeing. So I really love that singing bowl. Today we are talking about decolonizing. Why are we talking about decolonizing? We're talking about decolonizing because one of my themes for last year, 2020, this year, 2021, really through 2026 is decolonizing the survival instinct. Decolonize is a word that is thrown thrown around a lot in kind of academic-ish, spiritual-ish spaces, these radical political spaces. And I think that as we move further into 2021 through 2026, it is absolutely critical that we have a fresh understanding of what decolonization means. And in order to do that, we have to understand what colonization is. Now, when I was making my notes for this, the thing that really messed with me is this thing I've been talking about a lot on Twitter as far as how the English language is terrible. It is so insidiously violent in the way that it conceals the truth because we have a singular word used to describe multiple things. So English has evolved into this language of efficiency as capitalism has proliferated, as this myth of free will disguised as spreading democracy has proliferated. And so in other languages where you may have several words in order to define a variety of concepts or ideas or experiences, English gives you this one word. And so as I was looking up the dictionary definitions, the etymology of the word colonize, I was just enraged, actually. I was enraged at how the term colony and colonization and colonize conceals the true violence of what it is. So I'm going to share with you the definitions that I found. One is from the Oxford English Dictionary, and then the other one is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So the first is to send a group of settlers to a place and establish political control. That sounds so simple and so, oh, we just signed a few papers and documents and just did some bureaucratic administrative things and, then we were done. Okay. And then the other word is, or the other definition is a body of people living in a new territory, but retaining ties with the parent state. Whew, that thing right there, a preach, but I'm going to try to stay on my notes, stay on my sermon today. How sterile is that definition? I mean, again, English as this language of efficiency, we have this singular word to describe all of these experiences and all of these practices that are so violent. So there was one more word I had to look up just to complete this picture, y'all, I'm saying. And the other word I had to look up was settler. And this is just simply a person who moves with a group of others to live in a new country or area. Just packed up your things and hopped on your airplane and, took a trip. Then you just decided to stay, right? I mean, I hope already you can see where I'm going with this. I hope you can, understand why this is bringing up so much rage. So I had to, right? Rewind, reverse it, flip it, go back, and really zero in on this particular phrase that was in the first definition I gave: to send a group of settlers to a place and establish what political control over it. So political control. And this conceals the true depth, complexity, violence, and evil of this practice. I mean, what is so offensive and just enraging about this definition is that it uses the word place without recognizing the fact that there are people there first. There is nothing in any of these definitions that states clearly and explicitly that this control is over other people, and the place where the colonizers are going already have people there occupying it. So this is my very long list, this in-depth list of articulating what colonization actually is and what is meant by political control. First up is power, right? Then we have the eradication of, the violent replacement of, the violent stripping of cultural, dress, food, ways of relating, community, and being in relationship. Health, they bring disease, new hygienic practices or none at all, stripping the people of their hygienic practices, stripping the people of their indigenous healing practices. So already you've came and usurped the leadership that already existed, the leadership styles and power hierarchies and ways of organizing the society that already existed on purely a political level. Then you strip the people of the way they wear their clothes, the kind of clothes they wear, how they wash, what they eat, what they drink, where they sleep, how they sleep, who they sleep with, how they name themselves, how they name the world around them, right? Language, history. You erase their stories, and this is the thing that is most insidious about colonization, is that most of the places where European, let's just call it what it is, white European settlers took and came to a new place to establish political control were oral cultures. These were cultures that did not necessarily have written language. Their stories, their histories, their ways of naming themselves and the world around them, their myths, their stories, their laws, these were not written down. They were oral. So you have no record of the language. You have no memory of meaning. And as the generations go by, not only have you lost the capacity to speak your language, you have forgotten your stories because you have forgotten the language you used to tell them in. In addition to all of this, which is absolutely enraging, we have taken control over the resources, the land, the economies, the ways that they manage their resources, the ways that they share, store their resources. So when we're talking about decolonizing, this is not an intellectual exercise of reading a few books and writing a few tweets and doing a few YouTube videos. This is first recognizing the fact that your very personhood has been stripped from you. Colonization fundamentally strips people of their identity, relegates it to a person non grata, and says this is what a real person is. A real person is white. A real person dresses this way. A real person speaks this language. A real person eats this food. A real person sleeps here, builds their house this way, worships this God, remembers this story, parents their children this way. Colonization strips people of their identity, their culture, their ways of living, as well as their ways of surviving. All of these things I've listed, their power structures, their culture, food and dress, health, language, healing practices, child rearing, relating, organizing community, how they work with the land, how they economize their resources and goods, how they share labor. These are means to survival. And this decolonization is happening in so many ways, but the first way it happens is violence. Physical violence, actual death, and the threat of death. These are the external wounds where you are fleeing physical harm, but you also must flee psychological and spiritual harm in order to share space with colonizers. What's up? I'm doing a video. Hi. My son says hi, everyone. So let's rewind. Let's rewind. Let's go back. We're talking about decolonizing the survival instinct. So we've defined what colonizing is. We've defined what colonization is and skipped the dictionary because that's just the white man's retelling of his own story in a way that strips him of responsibility for the real violence he has perpetrated against us. And by us, yes, I'm talking about indigenous people. Yes, I'm talking about black and brown and yellow folks all over the world, but I'm talking about you too, white people. White is not a culture or an identity or an ethnicity. What is it, Summer? I can't do it right now. You have to wait. Because you had to rid yourself of your language. You, white folks, had to rid yourself of your gods and your deities and the variety and the multiplicity and the I mean, the lack of homogeny. I mean, this is a really heterogeneous culture and language and food and gods and deities and right that you white folks had to give up in order to become white. And so white then becomes not a skin color, it's a shared identity whose first requirement is that you erase yourself. And white folks aren't the only one doing erasing. Black folks, we must erase the kinks in our hair. We must erase the twang in our talk. Take a little bit of the spice out of the food. Change the way we sing our songs. And these things aren't banal. They're not banal. They're not these cosmetic things. These are things that are perpetrated with first physical violence and then psychological violence. Gaslighting. You can't trust your language to tell you the truth about what your experiences are. You can't trust your eyes to tell you the truth about what you're observing. You can't trust your body to tell you the truth about what you feel and what other people are feeling. You can't trust your doctrine and your belief system to tell you the truth about what your experiences mean. You can't trust your laws to tell you the truth about what's right and what's wrong. You can't trust your healing practices to keep you safe from harm. The way you organize your society, the roles that you have created in your society, the power structures and hierarchies you have created in your society, they don't tell you the truth about the real nature of power. Let me show you the real nature of power with this gun. Decolonizing the survival instinct. I've got a graphic here that I'm going to pull up on YouTube, and I'm going to share it on Twitter so that those of you who are maybe on Instagram and have access to another device, or those of you that are on Clubhouse, you can go to Twitter. You can go to Twitter and you can see this image that I'm about to post. So give me just a second to do that, y'all.
I can PTR also.
Okay. In just a second. I probably should have had this pulled up, but I honestly just decided to do this now so that everyone can see it. Winter, I'm going to email you really quickly the actual files so it doesn't get compressed through Twitter, okay? All right, those of you who are on YouTube can see this already. So I'm going to give a verbal description so that those who cannot see it will at least have an idea. And I'm trying to like move myself in these cameras so that people can still see me even though I've got this graphic up. So the image that I've posted is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. There are 4 larger squares turned on their sides so that they look like diamonds. And in each of these 4 squares are the 4 fixed signs in the sidereal zodiac. In between each of the 4 larger squares where the 4 signs of the sidereal zodiac are smaller black squares that are describing the relationships between the signs, okay? In each of Oh, and in the middle is a white square and it says Decolonizing the Survival Instinct. If you downloaded or attended my talk 2021, The Will to Live, you have already seen this. You have already heard some explanation of this graphic, but I want to take this moment to share a little bit more in depth this thing. Also, if you, I'm going to explain this, but also you can do this as well. If you have the 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide or any other of the previous years, and if you have the Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop, it might be beneficial for you to pull up the table you filled out that has the house numbers and the signs that go with it for your sidereal birth chart. So again, if you have the Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop and or you have the 2021 or any other previous year's guide, this would be a great time to pull up the table that has the house numbers as well as the signs that go with each house for your specific birth chart, okay? So pull to refresh if you're on Clubhouse to see the image that I'm using. Thank you so much, Winter. This is why you need a co-moderator to help you do the things, because can't think of everything yourself, okay? So we're going to start with Scorpio, which is a fixed water sign. It's ruled by the planet Mars, which is the first shape at the top of the red box. Then it says Scorpio defined as autonomous instinct, okay? Then we're going to go counterclockwise. So that means we're going to go down to the brown square. And the brown square says Saturn, right? The glyph for Saturn, Aquarius, and then self-determination. We also have in each of these squares the symbol that represents each of the signs, okay? Then we're going to go to the right, where we have a green square with the symbol for Venus up top, which is the ruling planet for Taurus. Then we have Taurus and social construct. Then going up to complete our counterclockwise movement, we have a yellow square with the sun as the planet there for the ruling planet of Leo, which says assuming authority, and the symbol for Leo. So I just want for those of you who can see this to just take a moment to look at this and absorb it before I move on so that I don't get too far ahead of you. And of course, this video will be available on Instagram. This video will be available on YouTube. And so you can see this graphic and revisit this anytime because it might be a little bit too much to take in. But the first thing I think would be beneficial to say here is that it is not necessary for you to have any planets, points, asteroids, outer planets, or anything in these signs in order for them to be relevant to you and your life and your chart. Thought I turned that off. Oops. Okay. So what is relevant, however, is twofold. Okay, and I'm not going to go too deep into that here because it's a little bit too much and it's beyond the scope of the amount of time that we have today. But the one thing that you can note is that even though you may or may not have planets occupying Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, or Leo, you absolutely have their ruling planets in your birth chart, and you absolutely have houses in your birth chart that have these signs on it. So when I'm talking about your birth chart, I'm assuming that you've gone to thepeoplesoracle.com and you've clicked you've clicked Sidereal Birth Chart and you followed the instructions I've provided for using astro.com to class your birth chart. And you followed the instructions very, very precisely using all of the settings that I've provided there, especially, but not only the whole sign houses setting, okay? If you've had a reading with me and you've received a birth chart from me, then you've already got a chart that has the appropriate settings for how to view a chart with my work, okay? I'm going to go through this really quickly. The 4 fixed signs, and again, if you've got the Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop, then you already know this and you're familiar with this, but this will be new for some people, okay? There are 2 primary ways that we classify each of the 12 zodiac signs. We put them in these 2 categories. First is by element, which I call tools, and the other is by mode, which I call tasks, okay? There are 3 modes: cardinal, fixed, and mutables. Each mode or set of tasks is describing the kinds of experiences that you, based on the pattern in your birth chart, have had that shape the toolkit you have in life. For fixed signs, we're talking about identity and we're talking about survival. So when we talk about this whole decolonizing the survival instinct, what we're really talking about is decolonizing identity. We're talking about shining a light of conscious awareness on the social constructs that inform our identity. We're talking about the definition of personhood, the privileges, rights, and such of those who are defined as persons with identities recognized by the state, your family, your community, your church, your school, etc., and so forth. Each of these 4 fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo, are talking about tasks that have to do with identity. When you are examining each of these 4 fixed signs, they are each answering the question, who must I be to survive? So if we go back to my long breakdown and definition of colonization, we know that colonization fundamentally strips groups of people of their identity and individuals of their personhood. I'm going to say that again. Based on the definition and description of colonizations that I've offered here, we know that settlers, who are also colonizers, first, primary, and whole work really is to strip a people of their identity and the individuals in that group of people of their personhood. Okay? So, understand that whenever I talk about anything individual having to do with any sign, any experience having to do with any sign, know that those experiences are not an individual thing that creates the culture. It's not an individual thing that creates oppression. It's not an individual thing that creates violence. It is a symptom of systematic oppression and violence. Hold on, Saru. Hold on, please. Don't come in here. Yes, go away. If it doesn't work, then you have to wait till I'm done. Parenting during a live, it's just gotta happen. Y'all are gonna deal. Okay? So get this, keep this microphone out of the video. Okay. Right. So anytime I'm talking about an individual, subjective, or personal experience of a zodiac sign, know that it is always a symptom. It is always a consequence of, an outgrowth of, and is engendered by the larger cultural. Your personal trauma is absolutely 100% of the time always a symptom and consequence of the culture. And so if you are looking for the source of your ills, it is always in the culture. It is always in the system and the structure. And so what that means is that if your issues, your personal sufferings are a symptom of the culture, it means that the solution is never individual. The solution is always systematic and cultural. And this is why the myth of free will is the most insidious yet successful tool of oppression that our colonizers have used and still use to, what does it say? Send a group of settlers to a place and establish political control over it. Right? Okay. So let's go back here. I just did it again. Get out of here, boy. I just did it again. Get out of here. You're not gonna let me get through a thought. Don't come back in here. So when you look at this image here, you'll see these black boxes, right? Let me just go through these fixed signs really quickly and talk about what each of these fixed signs is talking about. So the fixed sign Scorpio's tool is water, and that means your body and your bodily functions are what you use to survive. Your body and your bodily functions are also weaponized against you as a means to threatening your life and engendering control over you, right? So sex, your pleasure, right, is weaponized against you. How you feel to yourself, your feelings, your fear, your anger, and your rage, right, are weaponized against you. Okay? This is the autonomous instinct. It's the unconscious neural network of our body, connecting all of our organ systems and the mind body as a means to survival, but also is plugged into everyone else's, right? I actually, believe that there is actually no such thing as an individual nervous system. I think that the nervous system is it's the framework of the human organism as a collective. Okay? And again, this is why the myth of free will and the cult of individualism is so insidiously violent, right? Because it plays a trick on your perceptions that just because you look like you are physically separate from another person, your feelings, your identity, your actions, your will, your ambition, your goals, your movements, your comings and your goings, your thoughts don't have an impact on other people. But absolutely, all of those things are a consequence of other people's impact on you. The culture, that neural network that we're all plugged into. So, in the spirit of Scorpio here, one of the major themes we're confronting right now, today, I mean, I can make a broad timeline, but we're going to start spring 2020 as, as our reference beginning point, because you got to pick a beginning point, all the way through the end of the Saturn and Sidereal Aquarius transit, which ends in 2025, and the end of the Aquarius Leo, eclipses that end in 2026. Okay? So for Scorpio, we're talking about bodily autonomy. Bodily autonomy is the right to have control over what you do and when with your physical body. This is the right to emotional boundaries. This is the right to feel your feelings. This is the right to embody the truth of your feelings without fear of oppression or violence. It is the right to have control and rule over your reproductive organs, your sex organs, your person, your physical body. Okay? Then we get to Aquarius, which is about self-determination. This is about the very definition of personhood. So again, rewind to our definition of colonization, and we're talking about what makes a person a person. Who gets to decide who is an actual person? And oftentimes, unless we're talking about the 3/5 law that was instituted in the South during Black folks' enslavement here, in order to keep Black folks disenfranchised. Because if they counted Black folks as whole people, we would outnumber white folks so much that our political power, our social power would be apparent for everyone to see. And so they just played with the numbers a little bit and said Black folks are only 3/5 of a person. Okay? But besides that kind of explicit erasure of personhood, as well as with gerrymandering, right? Gerrymandering is an erasure of personhood, right? It disenfranchises groups of people from amassing power to have a say about who and what, or about who has power and about what they do with that power in their own communities. So this is where we dismantle and explode and destroy the myth of red state and blue state, because gerrymandering has concealed the reality of how the persons in several states across this country would define themselves by amassing political power. But the other way that personhood is defined and or erased is through law and language. Refusing to call a person what they have named themselves is an erasure of their personhood, saying you don't have the right to see yourself and name yourself how you experience yourself. You are who I say you are. Colonization of personhood, of self, of identity. Aquarius also teaches us about the colonization of the imagination, which is very, very, very deeply intertwined and connected to language. When we say things like defund the police, they don't want to engage in a good faith debate about why we should do that or why not. They want to play games of semantics and tell you that, what do you mean defund? What do you mean abolish? No, you know exactly what I mean, and I'm not going to debate with you about the meanings of these words. Either you with it or you ain't, and if you ain't, get out of my way, right? But also, those of us who truly crave freedom, truly crave the right to self-determination, truly crave the right to define personhood, free from the gaze of authority figures and power structures who continually violently erase us. Even we have colonized imaginations, because when we hear defund or abolish, our mental defenses go up, because our imaginations have been so colonized that we don't even possess the true freedom to dream of a freedom that's really free. We end up redreaming capitalism and redreaming police states and redreaming our own oppression because our imagination has been colonized. Do you really dream of exchanging your labor and time for currency at the expense of being in relationship and community with the people you share the burden of survival with? Do you share the burden of survival with your employer? That's who's looking out for you? That's who, when the get down gets to the get down and this money don't mean nothing and all the industrial complexes have collapsed, your employer is going to be the one to save your life? I doubt that. So why are you dreaming of labor? Why are you dreaming of storing increasing value in currency that has no inherent value? Relationship, air, water, and land are the only things that have inherent value. Everything else is a fabrication used to amass power. Then we get to Taurus, social construct. This is about, anytime we talk about Venus-ruled signs, Taurus and Libra, we're talking about what something appears to be, the identity we perceive someone to have based on what they appear. And this is really important. This goes two ways. This is talking to us about assimilation and the ways that our styles of dress and way we wear our hair and the tone and inflection in our voice has been colonized to disarm our colonizers of their violence. So I'll put on your dress, your style of clothing. I'll speak your language. I'll lift my voice up like this so that you don't feel intimidated by my blackness and my power, because this makes you feel like I'm not a threat. It makes you feel like I'm just, oh, look at her. She's just so sweet. Oh, shucks. But if I lower my voice like this, you know there's a problem, right? But Taurus teaches us about the social constructs we conform to in order to survive, and the social constructs that are used to colonize us. I have this book I'm reading. Hold on, let me get it for you. This book right here. If you think you radical and you ain't read this, I thought I was radical before I read this book. The Invention of Women. And this book talks about how gender as a construct is so innate to whiteness that they have gone to places that did not have constructs of gender in the way that white folks have. And so now these people can't even speak about themselves and tell their own history without the construct of gender. And so she talks about how you know, in alignment with this whole Taurus social construct thing, how, oh man, hold on, I gotta read this because this right here, and this is gonna segue us perfectly to the Leo. Hold on, let me find the right passage here. So just a kind of preface to what I'm about to read. What the author here, I can't say this person's name, but The Invention of Women is not a very popular title. And so I can't, let's see here. Ooh, sorry to y'all on, oh shoot, hold on. Okay, sorry to y'all on YouTube, but I'm trying to show these people on Instagram the title of this book. Hold on, y'all. Let me just pick this up. This is the author. Okeronke Oye Uwumi. I have no idea. I really don't be trying to butcher people's names. But it is what it is. The title of the book is called The Invention of Women. And so, hold on. I didn't go nowhere, YouTube. It's just that every time I need a new cable every time I move this camera. You're acting real funny. Okay. All right. So one of the things that the author is really just laying down their argument at the beginning is talking about is how hold on, let me find it. I just need to read it because if I'm a butcher it. Okay. So this is on the chapter called Visualizing the Bodies, Western Theories and African Subjects. The idea that biology is destiny, or better still, destiny is biology, has been a staple of Western thought for centuries. Those in positions of power find it imperative to establish their superior biology as a way of affirming their privilege and dominance over, quote, others, end quote. Those who are different, and the implication here is visibly different, are seen as genetically inferior or biologically different. And this in turn is used to account for their disadvantaged social positions. Okay? The notion of society that emerges from this conception is that society is constituted by bodies and as bodies. Male bodies, female bodies, Jewish bodies, Aryan bodies, black bodies, white bodies, rich bodies, poor bodies. And the author says they're using the word body in two ways. First, as like a multiple meaning word for biology, or it says metonymy for biology, and second, to draw attention to the sheer physicality that seems to attend being in Western culture. I also refer to the corporeal body as well as metaphors of the body. The body is given a logic of its own. It is believed just by looking at it, here we go back to Taurus. It is believed that just by looking at it, one can tell a person's beliefs and social position or lack thereof. Okay? Consequently, since the body is the bedrock on which the social order is founded, the body is always in view or on view. This book is dismantling, it is destroying the idea that physical appearance and what you can physically observe, or the biological assumptions you make about a person based on their physical appearance, are innate and natural, and the way that humans, that was weird. The way that humans have organized and structured their society. That gender is as natural as the air we breathe, and it has always existed. That skin color is obviously a physically observable reality, so it must say something about who and what is a person. The genitals you have are obvious and plain to see, so it must say something about who you enjoy spending time with, or how you don't like or like to receive pleasure. Your genitals absolutely must say something about the kind of work you do, or what your name should be, or the colors that you should wear, or whether you should have body hair or not. This fundamental principle is not innate to indigenous cultures in the ways that European settlers have weaponized them against us. Let's move on, because I'm gonna be here all day. Y'all know I can preach and preach and preach. All right. Then we finally get to Leo. And Leo is about assuming authority. And it's so fascinating because one of the things the author talks about in this book, The Invention of Women, is, and I put a little note here in my margin that I said the idea that only what is real, only what has valuable information to provide in order to make sense of ourselves in the world is that which is visible to the eye and that which you are consciously aware of. And this is the planet, the sun, right? Even if we strip away gender and maleness and kingship and father and men from Leo, we're still left with this essential fundamental principle that the sun is the intellect, the sun is sight, it's your eyeballs, it is your conscious mind and awareness. And a fundamental principle of Western European culture, scientism, and patriarchy is that only what you can perceive and see with your eyeballs is real. Your feelings aren't real. Your body is not real. Your body is a source of labor. It is owned by your employer and the estate, or any man who walks down the street and decides that they want to own you, control you, sex you, assault you, name you, claim you, buy you, sell you. And that based on these physically observable things, we can make assumptions about who and what someone is. So you see these oppositions of the sun, the conscious mind, Leo, perception, visibility, and Aquarius, which is self-determination, the capacity, no, I get to say who and what I am, but also the imagination, that the whole function of the imagination is that I can close my eyes and disregard what I'm perceiving and create and envision a reality that does not yet exist. And if your imagination is colonized to the point you don't believe anything unless you see it, you can't imagine your freedom. If your feelings are colonized to the point that you can't feel fear without making up some stupid belief that fear is wrong and bad and it's a prison and you can't stay in fear, how will you ever properly identify the threat that is and continues to harm you? If you can't feel your anger, how will you ever respond to the injustice of the oppression that you feel? If you can't feel your joy, if you can't feel your pleasure, then it's so easy for somebody to come in and tell you what you should and should not feel, and what does and does not feel good, and who you should have sex with, and whether you should do anal play or not, whether you should eat this or not. You think you're seeing things out of your own eyes. You think you came to this conclusion on your own. You think that man is fine because he's somehow objectively beautiful. You think you're sexually attracted to that person because somehow your body does this thing. No, your genitals were colonized. You've been looking at porn that's already told you what was beautiful, and it wasn't none of the people that you see around you. You think your judgments that you formed about what you like and dislike. You think you came up with that on your own. You think you're so smart and you read it in a book, but guess whose language it is? Guess whose history and story it's telling? Guess whose doctrine it's perpetuating? You didn't choose that. You didn't choose any of this. And yet you think you're in control. This is why giving up this myth of free will is what is going to really liberate us. Because then you stop taking responsibility for your own oppression. You stop taking responsibility for the harm that has been perpetrated on you by your caregivers. You stop taking responsibility for the systemic cultural problems of which your own suffering is just a symptom. This is why they're spreading democracy. They ain't spreading democracy. They're spreading the myth of free will. They're spreading give up your language and your communal cultural practices. They're spreading disrespect your elders. Because what you don't know is that your elders had to survive in the same oppression that you had to survive. And you want to hold them accountable for the harm and abuse, which you absolutely must do, but don't stop there. Why are your parents neglecting you? Why are they making these difficult choices of having to exchange their time for labor or actually listening to you and your cries? You think you're looking out of your own eyes. You think you come to these conclusions and these beliefs and form this politic and this spiritual doctrine based on your own experience. You can't even see yourself free from patriarchy. You can't even see yourself outside of the white gaze. You can't even tell your own story without translating so somebody else can understand. You don't remember your language. You don't remember your cultural practices. Decolonizing the survival instinct means stripping away and exposing all of the ways that you have had to erase your name, your body, your perceptions, your belief systems, and your cultural practices in order to survive in white supremacism, patriarchy, and capitalism. And now, I'm gonna draw some cards. Woo! Y'all, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I've been fired up all week. I've been angry all week. I've been enraged all week because I'm tired of seeing these same arguments on the timeline. And it's like none of y'all want to talk about the real perpetrator and the real problem, but I'm here to make it plain today. I'm here to make it plain today. Cause I'm committed to our freedom. And we're not going to get free arguing about who's a man and who's not. We're gonna get free by dismantling that BS gender construct altogether. We're not gonna get free by policing who's black and who's white and who's not. No, we're gonna get free by dismantling race as a means to being controlled and oppressed. You can't get free using your colonizer's language. And by language, yeah, English, but language, I mean the constructs of gender. The idea that race is something to draw a conclusion about someone. And yes, we absolutely do these things to survive on a personal level. If I see a man walking down the street and I'm by myself, I'm absolutely gonna walk over to the other side. And I'm in a capitalist society, so run me my money. But I can hold the same thought in my mind that capitalism is oppressive, violent, and it's gotta go, and make sure that my offspring live long enough to live in the freedom that I can only dream of now. You gotta be able to learn, hold these contradictions in your mind. You got to dismantle the binary, because the contradiction in the binary is what is used to oppress us. And if you assume the binary is innate, natural, normal, and always is, come on, man. Come on. All right. I'm going to get through this quick. I ain't going to spend all day reading these cards, but we got to wrap it up with some cards, because that's why we're here. So let's see what happens here. We've got the Hanged Man on the bottom. This is my favorite card of the song. After you've done all you can, you just stand. And this card is fundamentally, essentially, critically about the fact that your will has its limits. Your physical strength, right? Your volition to push in a particular direction, your entitlement to see things as they are, your entitlement to make the world an accurate reflection of who you are, what you believe, your story, your myth, your God. Force has its limit. And force often has its limit because your force ain't stronger than their guns. Your arrows ain't stronger than their cannons. Your rage ain't stronger than the police's knee on your neck. So after you've done all you can, you hanged man, and you stand and you tap into other ways of knowing. You tap into other sources of power. I talked about in the previous video how this is spiritual warfare. This decolonizing your survival instinct. Hold on, y'all. I know y'all asking for my Cash App, but some of my folks have been having their accounts shut down on Cash App. So I'm putting my PayPal in here. I tried earlier, it wouldn't let me pin the tweet. So I'm gonna try again. Yeah. Instagram won't let me pin a comment, so sorry. But anyways, right? Tapping into other sources of power. Tapping into other sources of power is what the Hanged Man is about. Just because I look like I'm sitting still don't mean that I am consenting to your violence and oppression. Just because I'm not yelling and screaming and marching in the streets does not mean I am accepting these circumstances. Just because I exchange my time, labor, intellectual property for currency does not mean that I am accepting of capitalism. I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world. Don't let my appearance fool you into thinking that I'm not still in battle. We've got the Seven of Swords. Here we go. We've got the Six of Wands. And we've got the Empress. Oh, man. Man, Spirit just said really clear to me, we are in battle. And, oh, shoot. Did I leave the room? Sorry, y'all. I'm back. I was trying to kill a bug.
Oh, Lord.
No, it was like all up in my face, and then I knocked the iPad. I'm back, though. So Spirit is saying very clearly to me that in our stillness, in our feelings of powerness, to push back with force against the violence and oppression and continued colonization of our intellects, our imagination, our bodies, and our personhood, that our stillness is not a signal of acceptance. Your inability to force the changes that you seek to bring about your freedom these are meant to teach you and remind you that free will is a myth. I know in America and in Western culture, you can succeed if you just try hard enough. If you just work and save, you'll have enough. If you focus and maybe lose a little bit of sleep along the way, you can make it. What is it? What is the it you're trying to make? The visual I just got was of a pyramid. And each of us are crawling on the backs of each other, trying to grasp and reach our way to the top. But because we're fighting each other, because we're pulling and grasping on each other, we cannot reach that upper level that truly holds responsibility for our circumstances. So in your stillness, in your solitude, in your meditation, in your prayer, at your altar, in your dreams, in your feeling like there is absolutely nothing else that you can do, recognize the source of your discontent. Recognize the source of your oppression. You are not the cause of your own oppression. You are not the cause of your poverty. You are not the cause of the abuse, emotional, physical, and psychological that has been perpetrated against you by your family. You are not the cause of your own imprisonment. You are not the cause of your pain. You are not the cause of your autoimmune disease. You are not the cause of the sexual assault you experienced. You are not the cause. Those are symptoms, intentional symptoms of racial capitalism. They are the goal of patriarchy. And they are absolutely the purpose of white supremacism. So the healing work that you do, the clever and innovative ways that you recalibrate your mind, your imagination, to deprogram it of the myths and the binary language that these systems colonize us with. This is the key to empowerment. Empowerment is not the capacity to overcome another by force. Empowerment is recognizing the tools you got in your toolbox and sharpening up your skills to use them. Free will is not in your toolbox. That is not a resource. And if it was a resource, your family would not still be in poverty. If force and will was the key to success and freedom, obviously we would all be free right now. How many generations of indoctrination into the myth of free will must pass by before we realize it's BS? How many years must you turn onto yourself, blaming yourself, beating yourself up, internalizing the voices of your abusers, versus personal and political? How long will you believe the story they tell you about who you are based on the race, gender, class that they created to oppress you? How long? How long are you going to think that your genitals entitle you to power? What happens if we cut it off? What happens if you're castrated? Is that still the source of your power? The thing by which your personhood is defined? The Empress card is about resourcefulness. It's about having at your disposal what it is you need. These cards are about the work of repositioning our perspective, taking our eyes back, seeing ourselves through our own eyes, seeing the world through our own eyes, stripping away the ways we've internalized the gaze of whiteness, the gaze of patriarchy, and the gaze of capitalism. Can you see your time for something other than labor and currency? Can you see your body for something other than labor? Can you name yourself for something other than gender? That's all I got. I told you I was going to keep it short. I think I said all I needed to say. Woo! All right. For those of you who have stuck around, I owe an email. Let's hear a little announcements at the end of service, and then I'm going to get to doing a few readings for people on Clubhouse and Instagram. Actually, I'm only going to do readings for Clubhouse today because I want to do some sidereal astrology readings instead of tarot readings. But for my YouTube and Instagram audiences, as well as anyone on Clubhouse who pre-ordered the printed and bound 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide. You got an email from me a week ago talking about how where's my stuff? I don't know where. Oh, here it is. So y'all can't see it, but you see this binding? This is the binding that I use for the printed guides because the plastic spiral ones come out or break and then the whole thing starts to ravel. So this is from 2019 and so it's still put together. So these spirals were coming from Texas the week of the winter storm that devastated and still is devastating the people of Dallas and Houston, some in Austin, and all over Texas. So I talked to my printer yesterday. He didn't get any shipments all week. I mean, I don't know those of you who are in New Orleans, but still, a week or two later, going into the grocery store, there are still things that are just out of stock, and they don't know when we're going to get them because the whole supply chain has been disrupted by the storm and the lack of power and water. So I'm going to march myself up to the printer tomorrow and see what we can do to get these guides done. I'm crossing my fingers that I can ship them out for you this week. I've got all my shipping supplies and labels ready, just waiting to ship these guides out. But this is why I gave the disclaimer about Mercury retrograde in the initial email announcing pre-orders. And this is why I just went ahead and gave all of you who pre-ordered a complimentary copy of the digital version. The only other thing that I want to say, if you want the book that I'm reading and referencing, it's The Invention of Women by Oyeronke Oyewumi. Sorry to this queen, this lovely person, for butchering their name, but I did my best. And if you want any of the content that I referenced today, the 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide is available for download at thepeoplesoracle.com. Click shop. And the Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop is available for download at thepeoplesoracle.com. Click shop. Saru? So there's that. Farewell to my YouTube folks. Farewell to my Instagram folks. Join me over on Clubhouse if you do have the app. And this is where I'm going to be doing readings today. You all take care. Take care of yourselves. We are in for a ride. I went to great lengths to really explain and articulate these things today because you're going to need it. You're going to need it. And I'll have more for you soon. I've got plenty of content that I've already put out. The 2021 forecast, which is in my online shop, the 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide, and I'm going to probably post these on Instagram and TikTok later. Oh, I'm on TikTok. Follow me at People's Oracle. But I did some horoscopes, some meditations for each of the 12 sidereal zodiac signs that are on my Twitter page. So go to People's Oracle on Twitter. And there's a single meditation for each of the 12 sidereal zodiac signs. No, they do not apply to tropical. And I meant to tweet this, but I want to say this here. Those meditations that I wrote are evergreen, okay? Meaning that these are not only for the full moon that we're under now, this is for the rest of 2021 through 2026. What I wrote is your work for the next 5 years. Okay, so make sure you check out those meditations. I will try to share them on Instagram and TikTok this week.